Carrie Rhinehart with 5-Minute Math. Today I'm going to be looking at factoring trinomials using the asterisk method. So in Algebra 1, Unit 6, Lesson 2, again we're looking at factoring trinomials using the asterisk method. In Lesson 1 we looked at factoring out GCFs. So when you're asked to factor, remember you always should look for a GCF and factor it out if there is one. There may not be one, but you should look for it. Then, if you have a trinomial, whether you could factor out a GCF or not, if you're left with a trinomial, you can try to factor it using the asterisk method. Now, keep in mind, not everything will factor, but you should try to factor it. An example would be if I was given x squared plus 5x plus 6. And guys, factoring is like undoing FOIL or undistributing. You want to rewrite it as two factors, two things being multiplied together. Okay. So first I'm going to look for GCF from x squared, 5x, and 6. But there is no GCF here. There's nothing that I can take out of all three of those terms. So now I'm going to see if I can factor this using the asterisk method. And when I say asterisk, it's because I set it up using this, which it looks like an asterisk. And we have a times c on top, b on bottom, ax here and here, and then m and n. Now, I know this is like, well, what do all of those things mean? Well, a is the coefficient of the x squared. So in this case, the number in front of x squared is an understood 1. Okay. B is the coefficient of x. So that's the 5 in this case. And c is the constant. Okay. So the constant here is 6. Okay. Again, this b is 5. Let me write it in red. Okay. So that's where the values over here are coming from. A times c. Ax is just the x squared, this portion right here, without the square part. And b is, again, the coefficient of x. M and n, this is what the work that you're going to actually have to do here. You're going to have to find two numbers that multiply to give you a times c, and also add to give you b. Okay. For example, if a times c, let's say I have this. Let's say that this is 12 and this is 7. I need to find two numbers that multiply to 12 that also add up to 7. Well, that would be 3 and 4 because 3 times 4 is 12 and 3 plus 4 is 7. So let me erase this for now. All right, so let's do that here for this one that we're asked to factor. Okay, so a times c in this case would be 1 times 6, which is 6. B here is 5. And ax is, again, it's this portion just without the squared part. So that's just 1x and 1x, or just x and x. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to give me 6 that also add up and give 5. Okay. So things that multiply to 6 would be 1 times 6, negative 1 times negative 6, 2 times 3, negative 2 times negative 3. Okay. But the pair that also adds up to positive 5 is positive 2 times positive 3, because 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 plus 3 is 5. And then your factors are these right here. Now, if you can reduce them, you're going to want to, but in this case, nothing reduces. So the first factor is x over 2, which we write as x plus 2, because that's a positive 2. And the other one is the x over the 3, so that's x plus 3. Now, we can check this to make sure we did this correctly by distributing. So x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. And I can combine these. So I get x squared plus 5x plus 6, which is what I started with. So we know we did that one correctly. All right, let me do one more example. Again, we're asked to factor here, so you should always look for a GCF. Doesn't mean there's going to be one. So let's say we have negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 6. Well, automatically I see that all of those numbers are divisible by 2, 8, and 6. But since the leading coefficient, the -2, the one out front, this right there, is negative, I need to factor out a negative. So I need to take out a -2. So that means everything here needs to be divided by -2. I'm factoring out the GCF. So I get x squared minus 4x plus 3 after I divide everything by -2. Now I need to factor what's left inside, okay, this trinomial. Well, a here is 1, because that's what's in front of the x squared. B is -4, and c is 3. So a times c would be 1 times 3, which is 3. B is -4. And then I need to put x here and here. Again, that's the ax. It's this without the square. Okay. And I need to find two numbers that multiply to 3 and also add up to -4. Okay, well, the only things that multiply to 3 are 1 and 3. But since it adds up to a negative, that's going to be a -1 times a -3. Because -1 times -3 is +3. And they also add up to -4. So my factors are x minus 1 and x minus 3. Again, you could check this by distributing or foiling.